Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So Nick Ball defeats Ray Ford by a split decision to win the WBA featherweight title. Scores for this one are going to be all over the place. First and foremost, this was an amazing fight. Blood and guts, both guys had success, both guys had a contrasting style. You had the sharpshooter in Raymond Ford, you had the pressure guy in Nick Ball, the English Mexican. Bro, this was a mad fight. This was an excellent fight. I'll say right now, I had this fight 7 rounds to 5 for Raymond Ford. But there were so many close rounds in this bout. I felt both guys' guards, when they used it, were pretty effective. There were a lot of punches landing on the guard, both for Ray Ford and for Nick Ball. Both guys had success. There was ebbs and flows. It was a really good fight. Really good fight. Both guys, man, earned their money. Both guys put on a show. Nick Ball, you know, I was impressed with him at a domestic level. I wasn't really convinced he could acquit himself at world level. His last 2 fights have proved that. Ray Ford, last 2 fights, proves he's a very tough guy. Come from behind win over Otabek Kolmatov in his last fight. Had a war right now with Nick Ball. Both of these guys showed a lot for me. And quite frankly, this is the exact type of fight that needs a rematch. Because for me, it was razor thin. It was razor thin. How do I even talk about this fight? Sometimes when it comes to these fights, when it comes to doing post-fight reviews, sometimes I'll just say to you guys, watch the fight yourself if you haven't seen it, because this was an amazing fight. But there were so many ebbs and flows in this bout. I felt Ray Ford in round 1 came out with really interesting tactics. Nick Ball obviously was being very aggressive, as we're used to seeing behind a high guard. Ray Ford, his shots to the head in round 1 were primarily blocked by Nick Ball's high guard, but he did a very good job of going down to the body, primarily with straight punches, picking some good shots, taking the half step back, trying to use Nick Ball's aggression against him. But Nick Ball had his flurries, you know, landed some good cuffing shots on Ray Ford. Round 2 was pretty close in my opinion. I probably gave it to Ray Ford. I felt his sharpshooting type of style, he was landing the more eye-catching shots, the more obvious shots, the cleaner shots I would say. But Nick Ball's work rate upped in round 2. I noticed though Ray Ford was starting to hold his feet a little more. That invited pressure onto himself. After round 2, I felt Ray Ford gave away the play way too much. Nick Ball really came into this fight, was able to close the distance, collapse the pocket, and work Ray Ford on the inside. Hooking around the guard of Ray Ford. Ray Ford's guard in this fight was good. He was hooking around the guard of Ray Ford and coming up through the middle with an uppercut, which was splitting the guard of Ray Ford. And he was working Ray Ford up close in rounds 3, 4, and definitely 5. And it's interesting because at the end of round 5, you know, Ray Ford was succumbing, I don't want to say succumbing to the pressure of Nick Ball, but he was inviting Ball onto him. And Nick Ball was having success. And at the end of round 5, his corner, Ray Ford's corner, asked him, "How are you feeling?" basically, and they said, "You have to box, you have to move." I'm paraphrasing, and it sounded like Ray Ford said, "I don't have it in me," or "I don't have it." I'm not sure whether the weight played a factor for Ray Ford and his movement, but I'm sure he said that at the end of round 5, that he can't move, he can't box. Regardless, second half of this fight, there were rounds either way. Nick Ball would have a really good round where he would outwork Ray Ford, he would be the busier guy. And then there were rounds where Ray Ford would land some lovely counter punches. The left hook in particular was a great shot to the head, some great body shots. The hook around the guard of Nick Ball was a really good shot by Ray Ford, and he was walking Nick Ball into it. Some really good punch picking at times in the second half of this fight by Ray Ford. Some lovely counter punches followed by combinations. What I liked about Ray Ford in this fight, he would counter, he would get Nick Ball's respect, but then he would come and throw a combination. He would try to follow up warrior instinct, proper fighter. Then though, Nick Ball would have a good round, you know? And going into round 10, I had it even. But for me, two of the clearest rounds in this fight were rounds 11 and round 12. And I felt Nick Ball lost those rounds. I felt Ray Ford won those rounds. I felt Ray in round 11 boxed with a little more movement. He was maintaining range a bit better. I felt Nick Ball was starting to get a little desperate because Nick Ball's nose went in like rounds 7 or 8, something like that. Also, Ray Ford had cuts under his eyes. But Nick Ball's nose went in like round 8, I think. And that definitely affected his pressure. It definitely affected his performance. And I felt round 11, Nick Ball was trying to force it too much. He was reaching, whereas Ray was taking the half step back. He was pinging him with uppercuts, the left hook as well. Round 11, I felt Ray Ford boxed really well. Round 12 was a competitive round. It was a great round to watch. But for me, it was a round in which Ray Ford won clearly. Ball started the round very aggressive. Opened up with combinations, opened up with pressure. Ray Ford then walked him into a wonderful left hook. And he caught him later on in the round with another left hook that really buzzed Nick Ball. First time in this fight, either guy was hurt in my opinion. Truly hurt. Nick Ball was wobbly for a couple of seconds, but he recovered well, tried to fire back. Did. Then Ray Ford comes back and does his own work. This is one of those fights where so much happened I can't really break it down, but it was an amazing fight. I feel the scores are going to be possibly scrutinised. I had Ray Ford winning. But at the same time, there were so many swing rounds. There was a lot of work landing on the gloves from both men. Before I call it like a terrible decision or a robbery, this is one of those rare fights, and these fights are rare in boxing. People say all the time, this fight could have gone either way. I think that saying is overused in boxing, but for me, this fight needs a second watch, for me personally. I have had a few beers as well, so bear that in mind. But yeah, I felt Ray Ford won it, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, share your thoughts below. Watch this fight if you haven't. Great fight. Both guys put on a show. Beanie Guy Del Boy. Peace.